Starting in 5 seconds. Sir, the problems of the company audit, the difficulties experienced by the junior auditors, and the complaints of the audit profession in relation to these companies are before the government, and a comprehensive amending bill was introduced in this house in 1992, which was referred to the select committee of both houses of parliament, in which I happened to be a member, where elaborate evidence was recorded not only from the chambers of commerce and industry but also from the chartered accountants and also others who had the special knowledge of the working of the companies. All these aspects were considered, and the committee came to the conclusion of fixing the number of companies an auditor personally or a firm or auditors could admit be at 20. Therefore, the mover could have withdrawn this bill and introduced another after the amendment to the company law came into force. One of the reasons advanced by the mover is that the social concept should be introduced into auditing, by which perhaps he means that there should be dispersal of audit work among the thousands of members of the audit profession. I respectfully submit that this is not possible. No work can be distributed because some auditors have little work or are starving, and some work should be given to them. This is not possible. An auditor, like a lawyer or a doctor, should have a reputation which would enable him to get the work of audit of a company. Naturally, companies would select auditors or firms or auditors who have a reputation in their profession. Therefore, it is not possible to introduce the social concept in auditing in fixing the number of companies. A firm of auditors should be allowed to audit under the Act. His second point is that monopoly should be broken. The cry against monopoly is common nowadays, that there should be no monopoly houses, there should be no monopoly, and all that. If an auditor has attracted the audit work of a number of companies to himself, how can you say it is a monopoly when an auditor has no work because he has not earned a reputation in the field? How can there be a complaint that he is not occupied? This happens in every profession. Only a few lawyers get the work. Work is concentrated among a few doctors. How can the others in the profession complain? Then there is the cry for nationalization of audit. The mover mentioned it while moving the bill. How can there be nationalization of a profession? Have we thought of nationalization of the legal profession or the medical profession? It is not possible. Can the state maintain a panel of lawyers? The state do appoint lawyers in case where a client is not able to engage a lawyer, but no government, no state can maintain a panel of lawyers, doctors, and so on to look to the needy. It is not a workable proposition. Nationalization may be a good slogan, but it does not work in relation to certain professions in which the success of an individual depends on his own merit. Another point urged by the mover was that an auditor should be changed every 2 or 3 years. His main complaint is that an auditor or firm of auditors auditing the accounts of a particular company for a number of years may act in collusion with the firm and may not do the auditing faithfully or correctly, that he may be hand in glove with the company and its directors. In such cases where a chartered accountant is found to be guilty of misconduct, there are provisions in the Chartered Accountants Act under which action can be taken against him. It takes 2 to 3 years for an auditor to understand the working of a company. All these questions were gone into the joint committee in great detail, and then it was found that no limit could be put, though the number of companies an auditor could audit could be limited. The period during which he should be allowed to audit a company was not found to be capable of limitation as feasible, and that was why it was rejected. Another objection taken by the mover was that all the auditors are in metropolitan areas. Necessarily, they should be from the metropolitan areas. They should know the working of companies. How can an auditor residing in a small town whose only business is to audit the accounts of small businessmen for sales tax purposes or for the purposes of other commercial taxes be entrusted with the work of auditing a company's accounts? It is a complicated affair. It is not possible. It is only in metropolitan cities that the auditors could carry on their profession. They get the whole time experience of accounts of the companies about costing. Also, I think the company law board can order an inquiry into the cost of production in a company. I think all those provisions have been made after elaborate discussion. Stop. Starting in 5 seconds. Sir, while supporting the demands for grants of the Commerce Ministry, I compliment the Commerce Minister for the excellent work done during the year on all matters falling within the purview of the Ministry. The report of the Ministry highlights the achievements and puts the problems in a correct perspective. The time has now come to push ahead with policies for placing greater emphasis on exporting finished and semi finished goods in preference to raw materials. This will promote industrialization and help augment foreign exchange earnings. Renewed emphasis must be laid on creation of export surplus and restraining the pull of the home market as and when it develops through suitable fiscal measures. This is very important. We must create export surplus, otherwise, we cannot improve our exports. There is a paramount need to do some fundamental rethinking on export assistance measures. Is it possible to replace the present schemes of cash compensatory export and import replenishment by a more durable system, such as taxing profits attributable to exports to a concessional rate? Also, a scheme of tax credit certificate can be introduced. For this purpose, I suggest that a compact high level committee, preferably including non official experts, should be appointed. The increasing problems of sales tax on export transactions must be resolved, and it was over a year ago that the Supreme Court had made a judgment that chain contracts for exports through state trading corporation would not be exempt from sales tax. I understand that Commerce Ministry is engaged in resolving this problem, but so far no action has been taken. The problem of export finance must be examined so as to put Indian exporters at least on par with their competitors. Adequate shipping facilities must be provided. This problem must be taken up in right earnest. I believe that India has the capacity to become a world leader in exports of cotton textiles, ready made garments, sugar, processed vegetable oils, leather manufacturers, and engineering goods. These potentialities can be realized by initiating a bold program of augmenting production of raw cotton, sugarcane, oilseeds, steel, etc. I also attach great importance to the efforts that the Commerce Ministry have been making in building a healthy relationship between industry and trade. There should be complete harmony on all matters concerning policies and procedures, and regular and frequent discussions must take place between the commercial organizations and government. I find that we have too many associations both at the center and state district levels. Such expansion is not a healthy process. I would suggest that this matter should be examined in all its aspects so that there are selected all India organizations which can speak with appropriate knowledge and study on all matters relating to export promotion and industrial development. I know myself that many of the commercial houses have now reoriented their thinking. They are wedded to achieve national goals in which the highest priority must be given to promotion of exports through creation of larger surpluses. I am glad to find that a new department of textiles is being created. The cotton textile and jute industries are currently in a bad way and are working below capacity. There is a crying need for initiating programs of modernization, renovation, and rehabilitation. I would like to submit that the Commerce Ministry should restore health to the cotton textiles industry so that the general economic and industrial outlook in the country will improve. The policy announced in the beginning of December last year was good as far as it went, but there is need to review it so that a vigorous program of development of the spinning sector can be initiated without further loss of time. I would like to take this opportunity of referring to the number of joint commissions that have been set up with different countries in the world. I suggest that the business community should be associated with the discussions as also in negotiating trade agreements. That will be really very beneficial. I am happy to find that a separate chapter has been devoted in the report of the Commerce Ministry to Indian industrial joint ventures abroad. It is true that prospective entrepreneurs wishing to set up joint ventures receive due assistance from government. I would, however, suggest that India's potentialities and capabilities in this regard should be realized more fully. Here, I would also suggest our collaboration with other countries in putting up industries in third countries. We can always collaborate with Russia, China, or Japan to put up industries in third world countries. Such collaboration will be beneficial to all concerned. India has well developed capacities in the field of construction, architecture, town planning, dam engineering, mining, oil exploration, power engineering, management, and economic consultancy. Subcontracting, particularly in Southeast Asia, offers large scope, and there is no harm in becoming a junior partner provided it can give satisfactory results to the nation. I would suggest that the Commerce Ministry should take greater interest in enabling Indian entrepreneurs to realize the potential in this behalf. Stop. Starting in 5 seconds. It is today a rare day in my life having to introduce a friend of 50 years from whom I have borrowed a great deal, from whom I have learned a great deal. I think it was Lord Keynes who said that in human affairs one should not minimize the role of vested interest, but he had the courage to say that, in his view, in the long run, ideas are probably more influential than vested interest. Professor Sen's writings, his life, his work are a standing monument to the living truth embodied in Lord Keynes' that famous quote, "When I was a student at Cambridge," and this I have mentioned very many times, an old book of Professor Pigou influenced me a great deal, and that was the opening chapter of his Economics of Welfare, in which he stated, "When we study economics, our impulse is not philosophers' impulse, knowledge for the sake of knowledge, but for the healing touch that knowledge, directly or indirectly, may help to bring. I think in our times we have seen Professor Sen's writings have influenced not only national policies but also the way the world thinks about issues of development, about poverty, about inequalities, gender inequalities in particular. In all these areas, Professor Sen has been a great pathfinder. Wonder, I believe, he once said, is the beginning of philosophy, and I go back to Pigu when he said, it is not wonder but the social enthusiasm which revolts against the joylessness of withered life and the filth of mean streets, which is the beginning of the economics science. Professor Sen is not ordinary economist. He has contributed a great deal to the world of philosophy, our outstanding of our past culture and civilization, but his written work has always been inspired by what I believe is the ultimate purpose of the study of social science. So, it is for me a real pleasure to be associated with this function. For me, yet another reason, when I went to Washington, I came to know in a manner which was not known to me before how much the world looks up to India as a laboratory for the successful functioning of a democracy in a country of billion people with a great diversity where all religions of the world are represented, where we take pride in languages as our national languages. When the President of the United States introduced me to his wife and he said to her, Laura, do you know of any other country of a billion people trying to seek its salvation in the framework of a democratic polity? 150 million Muslims, but not one of them has joined the rank Al Qaeda. So it was with deep sense of pride that I heard all that. But we have to practice tolerance, respect for diversity, which is our heritage. If the 21st century is to be Indian century, and I believe that this century in many ways will be Indian century because distances are losing their old significance. Advances in science and technology have made it possible as never before that chronic poverty not to be the inevitable lot of a majority of humankind. Also, most societies of the future, thanks to the revolution in transport and communication, will be multicultural and multi-ethnic. And how then to reconcile the management of this globalization processes with the search inherent in all human beings of searching for their roots. And I think in that quest, our culture, our civilization, our history, I do believe will have important guides. India is on the threshold of great opportunities and great challenges. As I have said, that poverty removal is an attainable goal, and here works of Professor Sen and his colleagues have illuminated the pathways how this can be realized. I think today more and more people recognize that that's the route to deal with our social and economic problems. But India's message to the world is that diversity, pluralism are the way of future. We have lots of challenges at home, at times skepticism, to which Professor Sen has so brilliantly referred in this new book takes us in many directions. Sometimes it breeds cynicism. I recall I was in 1975 in Paris attending the meeting of the Aid India Consortium, and I think the declaration of emergency was introduced while meeting was on, and if a French social scientist of mine said, Dr. Singh, well, inevitable has happened. Liberal democracy is not meant for people at low standards of living that India has. So, this is a luxury you cannot afford, and you have to prove that skeptics right. For 57 years, we have kept the faith with some aberrations, but a lot has to be done. I think the thinking segment of our population has to give this lead the eternal India and essence of Indian culture and civilization, and here Professor Sen has captured the true essence of what it is. Stop. Starting in 5 seconds. Mr. Chairman, I stand to support the demands for grants under the control of the Ministry of Human Resource Development. There are number of departments under this ministry, so it is not easy to cover all the departments. Even a few known to you know very well that I always take my seat before you ring the bell, which you please note. Today I may take a few minutes. It is difficult to select from which point I shall start. I shall take some points which most probably will not be taken up by the colleagues in this house. It is known that the West Bengal government did not agree to start Navodaya Vidyalayas. I know from my personal experience that if opportunity is given to a boy from the street, he can develop in a wonderful way. I can give you hundreds of examples from my personal experience of my life, but I will give you one example. Perhaps you know of a man made famine in Bengal in 1943. At that time, there were a large number of people who were on the streets. We picked up a few boys and girls from the street and kept them in our house for some time, and we opened a number of children's homes in West Bengal. And with reference to this, I am telling you about the home of Kolkata. One boy was a little boy. When we picked him up, we thought that he was a boy of 7 or 8 years, but after some times, when he stayed with us after he was fed well, we realized that the boy was not less than 12 years old. Gradually, we could realize that he is not only good in education, but he is a wonderful singer and a good painter. A few years later, we took the painting of that boy to no less than a person, a famous painter. Now, I request through you, sir, that the West Bengal government should start this scheme. What they are denying the people they do not know, and I do not want to go into that controversy, but I request them to think over it. In this connection, I would like very earnestly to point out that in 1942 movement they did not agree, but later on they said it was a mistake. Sir, I would like to suggest that a special program should be introduced for girls in sports. Usually, our parents are not coming forward to send their girls for sports. Special efforts must be made so that the girls could come to the sports. I would like to point out that the scheme of stadium must be helped in their subdivision and even in the villages. In this connection, I would like to submit that I have tried my level best to get some money for the stadium in our subdivision, but I was not successful. I hope I will be successful later on. As far as I know, tribal dance are not included in the dance degree course. It must be introduced, and tribal people are to be appointed as tribal dance teachers. It is not that a person from outside should learn and come to the university or colleges. Tribal people should be trained and appointed as teachers. Development of folk dance must be looked into. In this connection, I would like to submit that collection of folk stories and themes are to be planned from the remote corners of our country, because, as you all know, if those can be collected, we shall have a real treasure in our country. There are a number of very good schemes under Department of Young Affairs, Sports and Women Child Welfare, but I am sorry to say that delay in releasing grant spoils everything. I am forced to say that delay in release of grant gives scope of false accounts, and even the situation makes for a few organizations not to use money properly. If money is not released for months, how the teachers are to be paid, how children are to be fed, how medical care can be given, and where is the money for medicine. The policy of our government is to help voluntary organizations, but I am sorry to say that sometimes many voluntary organizations do not get proper treatment. After the applications from voluntary organizations are sent, they are kept pending for a long time. My request is this: if the government cannot give grants, let them say that for certain reasons they are not able to give them the grant. Do not keep them pending and keep hanging. Then money is not released in time. Of course, I must say that I am the last person to suggest that the government should assist voluntary organizations without proper inquiry. I further suggest that some organizations which get money from various foreign organizations, government should keep proper vigilance so that the money is spent properly. Stop.